Even the orthodox scientific story is quite interesting. For a start off, the Earth is full of carbon, which is the basic ingredient of all life. And carbon, along with all kinds of other interesting things like heavy metals and basic ingredients for the world we live in, can only be made inside the dying embers of a burnt-out star. Stars convert gas energy into heavy elements. So there is the beginning of our great planet Earth. And once the Earth was made, it was obviously drifting along in space for eons of time, where it probably would have gathered lots and lots of ice, and eventually fell into the orbital plane of another star, which obviously it would do. And then it had to be exactly in the right place to melt the ice to create water. Apparently the oxygen was made by some kind of microbe which somehow or other found its way onto this icy plane and ate poisonous gases and converted them into oxygen. And from there on, life begins. So it's quite an incredible story which involves millions and millions of chances to one. But theorists, scientific theorists, believe that because the universe is so vast, that eventually a whole accumulation of miraculous coincidences will eventually create a world like this one, a water world. Scientists call this the monkey theory, that if you put enough monkeys in front of enough typewriters, all hitting the keys at random, eventually one monkey will type out the words "I am a monkey" completely by accident. And this is how we get to have a world, a water world. So everything about science is about proving that the world we live in is an accident. And as soon as you can prove that it's an accident, then you have deleted the whole idea that there is a creator. Now, can it be said that science for some reason has a little bit of a prejudice against there being a creator? Did they automatically only seek out accidental theories and automatically dismiss any theories which involved an intelligent source of life? For instance, they cannot explain how the basic cell of life begins. Inside a cell is enough information to fill 14 volumes of the Encyclopedia Britannica, apparently. And all of this information is contained in a thin-walled membrane, the skin. But what comes first, the information or the skin? The information inside the cell creates a skin. The skin cannot exist without the information, and the information cannot exist without a skin. So it's a bit like the chicken and the egg. which comes first? Science cannot really answer those kinds of problems, along with many other problems. But anyway, I have a different theory about how this water world we live on was created, which does not actually involve a specific creator either. Needless to say, I think there is one, but part of my belief is that the world we live in is in fact not a ball, and that it is a flat surface, or a mean average of being flat. I have many reasons for believing this, but probably the most dominant reason is that if you take a skyscraper and stand it next to another skyscraper, you'll never find that they peel apart at the top. Even if they're 50 miles apart, 100 miles apart, everything built according to the center of gravity will always be perfectly perpendicular to the adjacent object. So in my theory, the skyscrapers of New York, of London, of Singapore, of Perth, of Sydney, of Los Angeles, if you were to measure the distance between these skyscrapers with a laser of some sort, you will find that they are all exactly parallel, which means to say that the surface we are living on has a mean average of being flat, or at least the center of gravity always produces objects which are exactly in a line with each other. So obviously if we lived on a ball, all these large tall buildings would be peeling away at the top, but they never do. And for more evidences of the Earth actually being flat, you can listen to Eric Dubé, 200 Reasons Why the Earth is Flat. He does bring up some important points. But anyway, if you ever get into an argument with someone about the Earth being flat, well, you will be greatly mocked and jeered and laughed at, and probably disfellowshipped from quite a lot of social circles. So it probably pays not to do that. And they all think that it's such a joke that there could be an Earth with an edge. And they will be making jokes about people falling off the edge of the flat Earth. That is so funny. So the whole thing about there being an edge is ridiculous in their eyes. But actually, after thinking about it for quite some time, I realized that it was actually not quite as ridiculous as it seems. Because for a start off, all creations in this universe revolve around black holes. And black holes spin rapidly in one direction only, and always produce a material plane around them which is basically flat, like a spiral. We've all seen pictures of the Milky Way, how it's a big spiral, and then you see the sun, that all the planets exist on the one elliptical plane, which means to say the sun is enforcing gravity on one elliptical plane only, and that's because it is basically a black hole. Then we have planets like Saturn, which have rings, and the rings are always on the same elliptical plane. And planets like Jupiter, you'll find all the moons going around are all on the same plane. So all these things are spinning around a basic center of gravity, which we know as a black hole. And so black holes do not produce spheres, generally speaking, they produce disks. So then let's presume that the Earth was once like, say, Saturn, and it was spinning away with its elliptical plane producing the rings, and as time went by, the black hole began to lose its power, began to slow down, and then all the material elements around it began to solidify. Eventually the black hole began to spin so slowly that it was in fact a disk, a solid disk, made of heavy elements like iron, nickel, gold, silver, etc., etc. And around that there were obviously gases as well. So the Earth was spinning around its black hole, admittedly a very small black hole, but black holes can be very small. In fact, scientists are looking at ways of deliberately creating a black hole, because this can be used for a power source. You may have even seen a movie somewhere where the scientists create a black hole and then it gets out of control and starts eating everything around it. So a small black hole exists at the center of the Earth, and the black hole is spinning, drawing into it all these gaseous elements of various kinds, and as time goes by it slows down and eventually the whole thing solidifies into a disk. And around the edges of the disk there begins to be large mountains of ice, and in the center of the disk it is still quite hot and warm, and so the ice accumulating on the edges of the disk is constantly melting, and it's also moving across the solid disk, and as it melts and moves across the solid disk it breaks off large pieces of land of heavy element, and these get washed into the center of the disk, which is now filled with water. So you have a disk with ice all around the edge, moving across the land, breaking off large chunks of land, filling the center of the disk with water, and eventually creating continents. And that is how we get a water world. And I won't go on to more and more specifics about how we get oxygen, etc., etc., or how basic cells are created, but obviously they do. And I think maybe there is an external source which creates those things deliberately. So that is my theory on how the world we live in becomes a water world filled with life. To me it makes perfect sense that this is how it would happen.